Time now for a look at the latest business news, and Carmakers, Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot have confirmed their plans to merge. To tell us more about what that all means and the impact it's likely to have, we're joined by our business editor, Stephen Carroll. Stephen.
Eve, it's being described as a 50-50 merger between PSA, which is the French company that owns brands including Peugeot, Citroën and Opel, and Fiat Chrysler. The new joint entity will have its headquarters in the Netherlands. The companies say the move will save around €3.7 billion in costs per year. It's a big win for Fiat Chrysler, whose attempts to merge with Renault earlier this year fell apart after what the firm says were objections from the French government. Georgina Robertson has the story.
The green light has been given. The companies say this will be a 50-50 merger. At the helm, PSA's Carlos Tavares in the role of CEO and Fiat Chrysler's John Elkann as chairman. The board is to be made up of 6 Peugeot appointees, including Tavares, and 5 from Fiat Chrysler. The plan is to maintain operational headquarters in the US, France and Italy, but the company will be based in the Netherlands. The merger of these two auto giants is being closely watched by the French government, not only because it's a 12% stakeholder in PSA, but as the company employs around 65,000 people in France. A board meeting on Wednesday said all of PSA's French sites would be maintained and industry protected. When merged, the company's combined market share in Europe would stand at around 23%. The deal stands to make the 4th largest car maker in the world, and PSA's global presence is expected to grow.
What PSA stands to gain is a large market base to sell many more vehicles to help fund investments made in electric cars, self-driving vehicles and connected services.
The French car maker aims to strengthen its presence in the US market, where Fiat Chrysler already has a strong foothold. In turn, Fiat Chrysler gains both European and Asian presence. The boards of the two groups expect to reach a binding agreement in the coming weeks.
Now, shares in both of those companies jumped on reports that talks had started on a merger on Wednesday. A different picture, though, today on the markets. PSA shares down over 8% at the start of trading in Paris. Fiat Chrysler's up by almost 9%. Now, bear in mind that PSA rose by about 4.5% yesterday, so there's an element of a correction involved there, but 2 bumper days for Fiat Chrysler shares on the markets as well. More generally, in Europe, we have a mixed start to the trading day. London's FTSE 100 down, but the CAC and the DAX are both trading up. In Asia earlier, we saw shares getting a boost from the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates on Wednesday, although new factory data coming from China showing weakening activity in October weighed on the Shanghai markets. You can see the Shanghai Composite there down 0.33%, but gains elsewhere in Asia. Now, Boeing is facing fresh safety concerns after the firm admitted that cracks had been found in up to 50 of its 737 next generation planes. Earlier this month, US regulators called on airlines to check heavily used aircraft after problems were discovered with a part known as the pickle fork, which helps attach the wing to the fuselage. Boeing says that less than 5% of the 1,000 planes inspected revealed any problems. Australia's Qantas is the latest airline to say that one of its planes has been affected. The Union of Aircraft Engineers there calling on the carrier to ground its whole fleet of 737s until they're all checked.
Whenever you hear about an aircraft coming into problems, it's always caused by something very small like this, but this is a primary structure component meant to take the load off the wing. These aircraft should be grounded until such time that Qantas can establish which aircraft are safe and which aircraft aren't.
Now, can Apple continue to grow without relying on the iPhone? It's one of the major challenges facing the tech giant as smartphone sales slow down. In its latest results for the 3 months to the end of September, Apple's revenues overall rose by 2% to $64 billion. But what's interesting is the detail within that. We're seeing this continuing trend of falling iPhone sales, down 9% over this quarter, fall in sales of Macs as well. Now, the iPhone is still the dominant earner for Apple, but look at where the gains are coming from. In services, which include things like the App Store, we saw a rise of 18%. In earnings, and what Apple calls wearables, which is things like the Apple Watch or EarPods, an increase in earnings there of over 50% for Apple to $6.5 billion. These are all measures being watched very carefully by investors. Now finally for me, New York City has joined California in banning the sale of foie gras. The fattened duck liver frequently comes in for criticism by animal rights activists who say that the way it's produced by force-feeding birds is inhumane. Most of the foie gras sold in New York comes from the state itself. Producers there say the ban will cost more than 400 jobs. They plan to challenge it in court, but a previous attempt to overhaul California's 2012 embargo failed. New York's ban would impose a $1,000 fine and up to 1 year in prison on any restaurateur or grocery store caught selling foie gras. Eve.
Stephen, thanks a lot for that. Stephen Carroll there with our business update.